Hey guys, Kickassreaction. Today we have the RWBY world of Remnant. I think it's called the Great War or something. I don't actually know. I think it's the Great War. So let's find out. Probably right, but I don't know. Potatoes. Yeah. Oh wow, I was right. The Great War.
The Great War. What a terrible name for such a horrible time in history.
It's an epic title.
Though the war itself lasted around 10 years, the century leading up to it was filled with so much tension, you might as well lump them together.
Wow.
And most of that tension was coming from Mistral.
Interesting, Mistral.
Territories rich with resources and safe from Grimm have always been in high demand. But the Emperor of Mistral had managed to conquer nearly all that Anima had to offer, thanks in part to an unlikely friend, Mantle. The two kingdoms had formed an alliance. Mistral provided the small kingdom with goods unavailable in the frozen tundra. In return, Mantle introduced technological innovation as well as guidance in the settlement of Anima's cold, northern territory.
That's fair.
It was good.
That's cool, yeah.
Until it wasn't.
Good business. And then evil
incident
struck.
Mantle led to a strange and unexpected decree. The abolishment of the arts and repression of self-expression. The people of Mantle had come to believe that they would be much safer from the Grimm if they could simply keep the emotions of the masses in check. Given Mistral's strong, artistic culture, many assumed this would be the end of their alliance. But they were wrong. Mistral complied, selectively, enforcing Mantle's wishes only in the outer territories, allowing the centralized powers to continue to live as they pleased.
Okie dokie loki.
If you haven't caught on yet, Mistral's full of jerks.
Wow.
The people of Vale had a problem.
That smile was
with
scarier
it.
than any Grimm I've seen, that's
They
for
had
sure.
a problem with a lot of things Mistral and Mantle had been up to. Treatment of their citizens, use of slave labor, and their constant insistence that their way of life was what was best for everyone.
Yeah, one of those
Eventually,
live by our
Mistral
rules kind
made
of
the
things.
jump
It's the
across
better
the
way.
sea to the eastern coast of Sanos. The small islands and peninsulas in the area were perfect to establish a settlement. They were so perfect, in fact, that Vale had just begun settling the area themselves. I think we can all guess what happened next. The King of Vale did everything he could to avoid armed conflict. Despite cries from his people, he insisted on sharing the land with the settlers from Mistral. But to this day, no one knows who shot first.
Just
What
use your
began as
imagination.
a riot between the two bands of settlers had suddenly become the first battle of the Great War.
So that's where it all started.
Mantle
Small
quickly came
portion,
to Mistral's side.
then got
Battles
bigger
were
and
fought
bigger.
on both Sanos and Anima soil. Villages were lost to both combat and Grimm. And it wasn't long before Vacuo decided to join the party.
And I bet the Grimm loved that.
Up to this point, Vacuo had done its best to stay out of the fight. Mantle and Mistral, having both already established a small presence in Vacuo territory years before, promised to leave them provided they didn't interfere. Soon, those talks evolved. It went from don't side with them to side with us. And
Yeah, of course. Side with us or
Vacuo
war or much
did
bigger
not
war.
much care for that. And they came to the conclusion that if Vale were to fall, there'd be no one left to stop Mistral and Mantle from conquering them next. So they did what they considered to be the logical thing. They drove Mantle and Mistral out of Vacuo and told Vale they had their backs. I love their style.
Wow! Damn.
So the war raged on.
Yeah.
Grimm attacks increased worldwide.
Of course,
On
they're
the
having a fun.
battlefield, this
They're having a
meant
freaking
temporary
feast and party up
ceasefire
in here.
order to deal with the hordes of monsters before returning to the fight at hand. Those left miserable back at home, however, were often helpless with their best warriors away fighting the good fight. A lot of settlements were lost during these years, and most were
Jesus
never
Christ.
rations on food and dust were put into effect.
So I guess the Grim Guard
Development of
decide to leave the
technology
warriors
accelerated.
alone and just go
Humans
right for
and
the
faunas
weakened
who fought
ones.
alongside one another
Ones who
became
can't
closer.
fight.
And every day, mankind grew more and more efficient at destroying itself.
Oh my god.
But it all ended in the Vacuo campaign. Mistral and Mantle knew that if they could take the dust mines of Vacuo, they would effectively cut off the supply of dust to their enemy. It was to be a final devastating blow to Vale and Vacuo. They were only half right. The King of Vale personally led his army into battle alongside the soldiers of Vacuo and decimated the enemy forces. Crowned
Jesus
atop his
Christ.
head and armed only with a sword and his scepter, he laid waste to countless men. As the sand was soaked red with blood, the Grim came in droves. It was the single deadliest battle of the war, and legends of the greatness and terror of the warrior king were born that day. Historians will tell you most of these stories are nothing but grandiose hyperbole. Unusually violent weather conditions combined with Mantle's unfamiliarity
That cape though,
with
oh my
desert
god.
combat are likely what led to such a high death count. But whatever the reasoning, everyone
king.
bowed to the King of Vale.
That
when the time
freaking
was
king.
over. The Great War had ended.
At long last.
The world was ready to live under the rule of Vale. But the king refused. The leaders of the four kingdoms met on the island of Vital, and it was there that they worked together to form a treaty and establish the future of Remnant. Territories were redistributed, slavery was abolished, governments restructured, and the warrior king, the last king Vale would ever have, founded the Huntsman Academies and placed his most trusted followers in command of each kingdom's school. He would teach the world to fight so long as we promised to fight for ourselves and never against ourselves.
Yeah.
Seems like we haven't kept our end of the bargain.
Of course we haven't. We're freaking humans. We don't know what that means. Keeping our end of the bargain. Pathetic. Okay, yeah, that was cool. So, yeah, I'm gonna watch the finale now. So I'll see you guys then.